Hi, good morning all of you. Let us start today's class with a quote. Okay, the quote goes like this. All of us do not have equal talent, but all of us have an equal opportunity to develop our talents. Yes, very true. All of us are gifted by different talents from God. Some of us are talented in singing, some of us are talented in painting, some of us in singing, etc. But all of us have opportunities around us so that we can develop our talents. Yes, today's class we move to Unit 2, that is the Master Artist. Let's see about the writer. The Master Artist by Karl Moore. Karl Moore is an author and the creator of the site Children's Story Books Online. She created the site to fulfill her lifelong dream of writing stories for children. She also illustrates stories for children. Okay. Today we are going to see a lesson as to how a master artist draws a wonderful picture for his master and then how he is being rewarded for it. Okay, let's read and understand as to how the story goes. Okay. Monsieur l'Abbé had been a master artist of his day, and in 1392 he was ready to retire when, in the month of May, Giuliano Bartoli, a rich Italian patron, sent for him. Now see, who is a Italian? Italian patron means Italian is a person from Italy. Patron is a person who supports artists and writers. So a rich Italian patron sent for him. Sent for him means called him. On his arrival, Bartoli said, "I'd like a portrait of myself on the wall of my dining hall where everyone can see it. Could you paint it? The wall is 20 feet tall." Monsieur l'Abbé looked thoughtful for a moment and then shook his head. So, Monsieur l'Abbé was a master artist of his day. He was a great artist. He was a painter. And then a person called Giuliano Bartoli. Who's Giuliano Bartoli? He is an Italian patron. Patron means a person who supports artists. And then he wanted this master artist to paint a portrait. What is a portrait? A self-picture. Where did he want to paint his portrait? On the 20 feet tall wall of his dining room. So, in his house he wanted his portrait. Let's see what does this master artist tell him. Monsieur l'Abbé looked thoughtful for a moment and then shook his head. "I'm sorry, but I don't think so. I'm ready to retire." So, he's telling that he's about to finish his job. He's about to take rest. He's waiting for his retirement. "So, I'm not available for hire." Hire means to take on rent. So, he cannot come there and he cannot paint his picture. So, that's what he's saying. I'm about to retire. I'm going to retire, and so that because of that, I cannot come with you. However, seeing the disappointment in Seigneur means Mr. Okay, Monsieur means in French Mr. and Seigneur means in Italian it's Mr. Signor Bartoli's eyes, he continued, "Well, there's a possibility if you think you can allow me to use my abilities to the fullest. If you let me find out how far I can go as an artist. Not for money, mind you, but for food and a bed instead." So, he's telling that, well, if you tell me that you can allow me to use the maximum of my abilities and you can allow me to do it very freely, I think, I can do it for you, but mind you, it's not for money. It's not just for money which you are giving me, but it is for food and bed. I just want some food, and then I want a place to rest. So, it's the minimum basic needs which he is asking, not for money, he says. You need not even pose because my memory is excellent. Pose means when you are drawing, when somebody is drawing a picture, you need to pose for them. You need to stand in front of them the way you want that picture. And then by seeing you, they draw that picture. Yes, they sketch your picture. So, he is telling that you need not even pose for me. My memory is so excellent that I can see the picture there. Already I can see your portrait. Portrait is the picture which he is drawing of him. Portrait in my mind. But I insist, Signor Bartoli, that while I work, your portrait must remain hidden even from you. So, he is telling that, see, only one condition I have. I have to work, and during my work time, when I am working, I just don't want anybody to see what I am doing. I will do it all alone by myself. I don't even want you yourself. I don't even want Signor Bartoli. He's telling him that even you are not supposed to see your portrait. Only after finishing the whole work you are supposed to see it. That's the demand which Monsieur l'Abbé says to Signor Bartoli. So, the master artist tells Signor Bartoli that this is the demand. What is the demand? That he is supposed to work in full freedom. Nobody has to be interrupting in his work, and when he is working, only he is allowed to be there. Even Signor Bartoli cannot see his portrait. How strange. Okay, how strange. He is thinking it was a strange idea, thought the patron. But he also thought about how highly the artist had been recommended. So, he thought, oh, how strange this fellow is telling, what are conditions. But then after that he thought, oh, he is been recommended by, he is such a wonderful artist. Of course, he said, anything you wish, but I insist at least upon paying you something for your effort. Let's draw up a contract. I insist means he demanded something very forcefully. So, he is telling, of course, he said, okay, he agrees. Signor Bartoli agrees to whatever the master artist tells. Yes, but then I insist, he just demanded something very much, and he told that let us draw up a contract. Let us sign a contract. Draw up, let's sign. Now, a glint came. Glint means sudden brightness in the eyes. Now, a glint came to Monsieur l'Abbé's eyes as he gazed upon that 20-foot tall wall and thought of all that space, such a wonderful space to give his imagination wings. So, he looks at that 20 feet tall wall which is there, and then he feels so happy that he can give his imagination wings. Now, what is the meaning of give imaginations his wings means to allow the imagination to work freely, okay, so that he could paint the portrait in whichever way he wanted. He just wanted to give his imagination wings, means he wanted to paint it and he wanted to do the work in the way which he likes it. Because unknown to Signor Bartoli or indeed anyone else, for all of his career of 45 years. So, how many years had been master artist working? For 45 years. Monsieur l'Abbé had longed to paint in his own way. And what way was that? Certainly not the popular styles of the time. No. Monsieur Signy l'Abbé had hungered to break free of restraints. Monsieur Signy l'Abbé, as in the master artist, had hungered for what? Had wanted to break free of restraints. Means he wanted to break free of the traditional forms. He wanted to come out of the traditional art forms, and he wanted to paint a painting in his own style. He wanted to do it in his own style. But the guild means the professional union of artists. His craft and livelihood would never have allowed it. So he followed their rules, although he was never proud of it. Of course, he didn't reveal this to Signor Bartoli. Signor Bartoli, he never revealed it to Signor Bartoli. He just wanted to paint his own style, his own way, and he didn't never tell this to Signor Bartoli that I am going to do it in my own way, not in the traditional way as to how the painters would be. So he just wanted to break free of all of it, and he wanted to create his own new style. Signing the contract, they sealed the agreement. Okay, so they signed the contract and they agreed, both of them agreed. Immediately, the master artist threw a high curtain in front of the wall, a curtain through which Signor Bartoli could not see at all. He tried to peek. Peek means to peep. He tried to peek into it, but Monsieur l'Abbé insisted on total privacy for his artistic techniques. A week passed. How is it coming along? Asked hopeful Signor Bartoli. So, 1 week passed. The master artist, what he does, he puts a curtain in front of that wall, and then he says that I want total privacy. I don't want anybody to come in and interrupt my work. I don't even want Signor Bartoli to see it. And then he says that okay, he's ready for it, and then he tried to peep into it, but then he was not able to do it. Okay. Answering him from behind the curtain, so there was what happened? There was 1 week time passed, and then he's asking how is it coming? How are you able to do my painting, or how long have you finished? Answering him behind the curtain, Monsieur l'Abbé said, it's coming along quite well. You know, at the age of 8, I was an apprentice. Apprentice means a person who works for an employer. So, he was working under someone when at the age of 8. So, from the age of 8 itself, right from his childhood, he has started painting. I was an apprentice to the great Ambrogio Lorenzetti. And see, Ambrogio Lorenzetti is an Italian painter who worked in the 14th century. So, he was one of the most important painters of that time, and then this fellow, the master artist, that's Monsieur Signor l'Abbé, was an apprentice of Ambrogio Lorenzetti. He taught me the art of grinding pigment, laying plaster. See, now grinding pigment means it's a colored powder mixed with water so that it produces paint. Colored powder which is mixed with the liquid so that it is produced paint. He taught me the art of grinding pigment, laying plaster. Now, what's a plaster? It's a mixture of sand and cement put on walls and ceilings to give them a smooth surface. So, plaster means when you put sand and cement on the wall to give it a smooth surface, it's called as a plaster. Sometimes slowly, sometimes faster. He taught me how to draw, and most importantly, not to hurry. Signor Bartoli, a masterpiece takes a while at least. So, he's telling that, see, I am being taught and trained under such a great man. So, you need not be bothered about what I am doing. And then he has taught me all these arts. He has taught me how to paint. He has taught me how to grind, or grinding the pigment, or even laying a plaster. How he is supposed to be finishing all that. And then most important of all, he has told me that you can cut, you can paint, all that. But the most important thing which he has taught me, or he has told me, is you are not supposed to hurry. You are supposed to do it slowly and steadily. Okay. Reluctantly, Signor Bartoli withdrew. So, Signor Bartoli was again this time was very sad, and then he really withdraws. A month passed. How is it coming along? Signor Bartoli asked. So Signor Bartoli is asking him, oh, how is it coming? How is it how is the painting coming? How is the painting being in progress? It's coming along nicely, said Monsieur l'Abbé. Again from behind the curtain. Along with his words came strange sounds of swooshing, clanking and slapping. What is swooshing? Swooshing means move with a rushing sound. Swooshing, write down, swooshing means move with a rushing sound. Swooshing, move with a rushing sound. Okay, so swooshing means move with a rushing sound, and clanking means loud sharp sounds as if pieces of metal being struck together. So long sharp sounds as if pieces of metals are being struck together. Like this is a long sound as if the piece of metal is being struck together. Slapping. Slapping means hit or strike with palm. Slap. Okay, so slapping. Swooshing. So along with his words came strange sounds of swooshing, clanking and slapping. You know, you're fortunate. You're fortunate means you're lucky. Okay, that I'm painting your portrait. Only Buono Fresco will need 4 coats of lime plaster. It's the best plaster process I ever saw. Signor Bartoli, it will last forever, but it's a time-consuming endeavor. Endeavor means it's a effort or it's an activity. It's a time-consuming activity. So what happens? He asks, who asked? Signor Bartoli asked. Signor Bartoli asked Monsieur l'Abbé that, okay, how is it coming along? Is it coming good? And then he says, yeah, it's coming along quite well, no problems, no issues. And along with it, there comes sounds of swooshing, clanking and slapping. What is the meaning of swooshing? Move with a rushing sound. Clanking means loud, sharp sounds of pieces of metal being struck together. And slapping means hitting with the hand. Okay. And he says that you're lucky that I'm doing your portrait and I'm doing it in a different style altogether. It's called as Buono Fresco. Now see, Buono Fresco is an Italian expression for a true fresco. Now what's a fresco? It's a technique of painting in which a picture is painted on the wall or ceiling while the plaster is still wet. Okay, so it's a technique wherein you paint a picture when the plaster is still wet and then you are painting a picture. So that is called as a Buono Fresco. Sighing deeply, the patron withdrew again. Just how long would this take? Sighing means deep audible breath, like we say, no? So that is sighing deeply. The patron withdrew again. Just how long would this take? Another 3-4 months passed and finally half a year went by. So what happened? It's just not 2 or 3 days, or it's just not a week's time or 2 or 3 weeks time, but 3-4 months passed away. Okay, it's just not some time, but it is a lot of time which took, and 3-4 months passed by. And then what happened? What happened was, it was almost 6 months. 6 months, just half a year. Half a year means 6 months passed away, and still this fellow, who is that? The master artist was not being able to finish the painting. And then Signor Bartoli gets irritated and he says, how long have you been doing it? Enough. Okay. One day, Signor Bartoli marched in, demanding to see his portrait. So what does he say? You must be finished by now, and today I will see it, he exclaimed, shaking with frustration. Now he exclaimed, he shouted, and then shaking with frustration means the feeling of being upset. He was totally upset, he was frustrated. Stepping out from behind the cloth as though surprised by such anger, Monsieur l'Abbé said calmly, "That's fine. You only need to request it." You only need to request it means you only need to ask for it. So he just stepped back. He stepped back from the curtain, and then he said that he was like wondering, why is this fellow getting so angry? And then he said, he very calmly, the master artist very calmly said, see, you only need to request it. You only need to ask for it, request. And he pulled aside the 20 feet tall curtain. So he pulls aside that full tall curtain. Giuliano Bartoli stood for a minute. Then his mouth fell open. His eyes turned red, and he grabbed what few hairs he had left on his head. So Giuliano Bartoli stood there for one moment, for a minute, for just a moment. For a minute he stood there. He stands there and he sees his portrait, and then his mouth fell open. He was like, what's happening? And his eyes turned red. When do your eyes turn red? When you are extremely angry. He was very angry looking at the portrait, and then he grabs the few hair which he has on his head. He did a little hop. Little hop means when you jump by using one foot, it's called as hopping. You know what's hopping. And then a twitch. Twitch means sudden jerking. Okay. So see, it's a brief sudden movement that showed his anger. So it's a sudden jerk which shows his anger. And his eyebrows twisted as though he was under a spell. Under a spell means, write down children, under a spell means not in fully control of one's thoughts or actions. Not in fully control of one's thoughts or actions. Under a spell means not in fully control of one's thoughts or actions. Giuliano Bartoli obviously did not like his portrait. Not a bit. Giuliano Bartoli was enraged. Enraged means he was furious. How absurd! How absurd means how ridiculous. How disgusting. How disgusting means very revolting. He was like totally upset by seeing his painting. He didn't even like a bit of it. What does this mean? You will not receive any money. Do you hear? None. You are not an artist, maybe a thief or a madman. So he is telling that for this painting which you have done, the Signor Bartoli was so angry on this master artist. He says that for this, no way, you are not even going to receive a penny, a single not even some money for it, but you have just wasted my time, and you have just wasted whatever you have done. It's of no use. What is this, he is asking. And then he says that you are not an artist. You are really not an artist. Maybe you are a madman or you are a thief. Get out of my sight. Get out of my sight means just go away from here. You will leave my house tonight, or I'll have you thrown out. So he is telling that either what you will do is you will leave my house right now, or I will throw you out of my house. That's what is going to happen. So what had Monsieur l'Abbé drawn that was wrong? He couldn't see it. He'd fussed and fixed for so long. Okay, see, okay, he couldn't see it. So what had Monsieur l'Abbé drawn that was wrong? He's asking, what was that the master artist had drawn wrong? He couldn't see it. He didn't find it out. He fussed and fixed for so long. He was fussed means he thought and worked on it before finalizing. So he just thought, what is happening? What was that? What I did wrong? For so long. It was his 20-foot tall masterpiece. He wasn't sorry that he had drawn to his heart's content his way, no matter what anybody could say. Perhaps his patron couldn't tolerate his cubist expression, but Pablo Picasso would have been proud of him. So he's telling, maybe, perhaps, maybe it might have happened that his patron as in Signor Bartoli was not able to tolerate his cubist expression. So what was that he had drawn? He had tried to implement a new type of painting that's called as modern art. Now cubist expression, see, cubist means belonging to a style called cubism, a form of modern art which uses geometric shapes and was developed and made by Pablo Picasso in the early 20th century. This story tells us that an artist who lived 5 centuries earlier had discovered the same style and received no recognition for doing so. So it was not that Pablo Picasso had invented it, but the master artist, that's Monsieur l'Abbé, had already invented the style years before him. But poor fellow, he was not recognized because at that time there was no such a type of painting or such a type of style called as the modern art. So he's telling that perhaps his patron couldn't tolerate his cubist expression, but Pablo Picasso would have been proud of him. Pablo Picasso is the inventor who invented the modern art. If truth be told, Monsieur l'Abbé wasn't crazy. Wasn't crazy means he was never crazy. He was not crazy. Not at all. He had simply born means he had just simply born 500 years too early. So he had just born 500 years early. So adapted by the master artist by Calmore. Okay children, I hope that you understood what is the master artist. Let me just do a quick review as to what happened from first. First we know that the master artist, that's Monsieur l'Abbé, is about to retire. He has completed a long journey, 40 years of his painting, and then he wants to retire. At that time, Signor Bartoli wants the master artist, that's Monsieur l'Abbé, to paint his portrait in his house in the dining room. Where? In the 20-foot wall. Master artist tells that, okay, I can, first he refuses and then later he agrees. He agrees on what? He says that, see, if you can give me food and bed, and also you're not supposed to interfere in my painting. I shall paint it beautifully, but even Signor Bartoli is not supposed to see his portrait. On this condition, they both agree and master artist starts his work. A week passes, he is not able to finish. A month passes away, 2 months, 3 months and so on. Finally, 6 months gets over and then the master artist tells him that, master, Signor Bartoli, you are really very lucky because I am trying to use the best of plaster, that's Buono Fresco. And then after that, after 6 months, he finally shows Signor Bartoli, master artist shows Signor Bartoli his own portrait. But when Signor Bartoli sees his painting, he is disgusted. He just even didn't like a bit of it. Why didn't he like? And when he didn't like, he showed his feelings by, he did a hop, he did a twitch and then he grabbed the hair which is there in his head and then he started shouting and yelling at Monsieur l'Abbé, that's the master artist. And then he says, see, you are not going to receive anything for this painting and tonight, just now you are supposed to clear my house. Otherwise, I will have you thrown out. The master artist looks at the painting and then he sees that there is nothing wrong. He says that whoever may shout at me, but I am very much happy by the painting which I have drawn. So, maybe the patron, Signor Bartoli, might have not liked the way he painted his painting, but it was a type of modern art which Pablo Picasso later invents. Here in the story, the writer says that 500 years before Pablo Picasso had invented the modern art, this master artist had already invented it.
The master artist. Monsieur Signy Labie, a master artist, was ready to retire in 1392 when Giuliano Bartoli, a rich Italian patron, sent for him and said,
"I'd like my portrait on this 20-feet wall."
Monsieur Labie shook his head.
"I'm sorry, but I'm ready to retire."
However, seeing Signor Bartoli's disappointment, he continued,
"There's a possibility if you allow me to explore my abilities. Not for money, but for food and a bed. You need not even pose because I can see your portrait in my mind. But I insist that while I work, your portrait must stay private, even from you." "Of course,"
he said.
"Anything you wish. Let's draw up a contract."
A glint came to Monsieur Labie's eyes as he thought of all that wonderful space to give imagination wings. For 45 years, Monsieur Labie had yearned to paint in his own way, not the style of Byzantine or of Proto-Renaissance. But the guild, his craft and livelihood, would never have allowed it, so he followed their rules. Signing the contract, the artist threw a high curtain in front of the wall. Signor Bartoli tried to peek, but Monsieur Labie insisted on total privacy. A week passed.
"How is it coming along?"
asked the hopeful Signor Bartoli. Answering him from behind the curtain, Monsieur Labie said,
"It's coming along quite well. You know, at 8 I was apprenticed to the great Ambrogio Lorenzi. He taught me the art and not to hurry."
A month passed.
"How is it coming along?"
Signor Bartoli asked.
"It's coming along nicely,"
said Monsieur Labie. Signor Bartoli heard strange sounds of swooshing, clacking and slapping. Finally, a year went by. Signor Bartoli demanded to see his portrait. Monsieur Labie pulled aside the 20-feet curtain. Giuliano Bartoli's mouth fell open. His eyes turned red. He was enraged.
"How disgusting! You're not an artist. Get out."
Monsieur Labie wasn't sorry for what he had drawn. Pablo Picasso would have been proud of his cubist expression. Monsieur Labie simply had been born 500 years too early.
Okay, by this I stop. That's all for today. Dear children, thank you very much for your patient listening. Bye. Have a nice day. Bye.